Facebook. So welcome aboard, everybody. Good evening. It's a little late tonight, but here we are. This is Real Unfiltered Talk with Dion, Hibdon. Good evening. How you doing, D?
We made it. We're here.
Few technical difficulties, but we learned how to use Facebook for the first time, so we appreciate y'all tuning in and watching. What are we going to talk about tonight?
You name it.
You name it.
It's unfiltered for a reason.
Hey, let's talk about LiveScope, shall we?
No.
No?
Let's bypass that one if we could.
All right. Well, listen. Let's do.
Okay.
I've been thinking about this for a long time, and just because we're an unfiltered show, I want to talk about some things that have been on my mind this week.
Gotcha.
One of the things that I think we need to talk about first of all is, and I know a lot of people are going to be online to talk about bass. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to talk about the last 3 or 4 years. I've been very active in the crappie fishing industry, and I've seen a steady decline in the crappie industry. And I really couldn't figure out why. And a lot of people said it was LiveScope. It had a lot of things to do with LiveScope. But I don't think it's LiveScope. And I don't think forward-facing sonar is the demise of bass fishing either. I think what it is the cost of how to do it.
I agree with that. I watched a podcast just the other day of Chris Zaldane, and he kind of interviewed the Elite Series guys and what they had spent on their rigs this year when it came to electronics. And on the low side, it was an extra 20 grand. And several of the guys were in the 40s and 50s. And that just blows me away because boats are expensive enough the way they are, let alone putting that much more into them as far as electronics goes. But, those guys that are doing it and out there competing on the Elite Series, they feel like they have no choice.
That's right.
And
I got to back up a little bit because I have to admit on this first show, I had the audio turned off. So they caught the second half. The conversation was, I don't think forward-facing sonar is killing crappie and bass fishing. I think what's happening is the cost to buy it is what's hurting everybody. And I think, we talk a lot about, and we've talked for 6 months about doing this now,
sure,
roughly.
Absolutely.
And we wanted to do it right. We didn't want to get out there and bash everybody in the industry. We didn't want to make it all about forward-facing sonar. However, I think that the majority of our people who listen and want to learn are recreational fishermen. And
yes.
You can't learn by watching a guy stare at a TV screen all day. So that's why we decided to do the show, so we could talk about how do you really catch fish without using technology, and how do you catch fish while using technology. And so that's back to what you're talking about, Jason Aldean, and you see all these things out there. I mean, who is that the same guy that had like the 9 units on the front of his boat? Did you see that?
No, Chris Zaldane.
I'm sorry.
Chris Zaldane. No, Chris.
Isn't he a country music singer?
No.
That's Jason Aldean.
Jason Aldean.
Got it.
See. Yeah. No,
it's
Chris.
Close. Are they related?
Chris doesn't. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
sure.
one's an Asian-looking fella, and the other one's not.
And one's a country music singer.
Other one's a super redneck.
It's kind of like Jelly Roll. You know who he is?
That's right.
His slogan
yes,
is, "I'm just a fat guy with a guitar."
There you go.
So it's his words, not mine. But
no,
anyway,
Chris,
back to fishing.
Chris does a lot of good podcasts. And the neat thing about it is he's kind of the same way we want to be as far as, he talks about the things people want to hear about, and it ain't all forward-facing sonar,
So what is it?
Well,
because I'm kind of confused myself. We're in kind of a, I don't want to use, let's use some big words. It's kind of a quagmire.
Yes.
We're kind of stuck in this, I don't know, like a, what's it between heaven and hell?
Yeah.
Purgatory. We're in a
right.
purgatory situation here with fishing because kind of fishing's boring to watch.
It is right this second.
And if you don't know how to use technology, it's kind of boring to do.
Yeah.
So, I don't quite have the answers, but here we are to talk about it.
I never ever thought that I was going to be a guy that watched a lot of YouTube, but I got sick back this winter, and so I ended up, having to watch something on TV or on my phone, and I've watched a lot of YouTube, and like I say, it's just hard to watch right this very second. It would be nice if you had both ways, because you have to advance with technology, but also in the same respects, it would be nice, to just be able to go do it like we used to. And here in our store, we cater to a lot of, pretty much every walk of life when it comes to that.
That's right. Now, speaking of the store, we're here. We're going to film right here live at Bryant's Osage Outdoors. We're in Laurie, Missouri, at the Lake of the Ozarks. So for the millions watching around the world, which I think so far today is just 7, but there will be millions, and then it'll be good. So what you said, let's tie into that, and that'll be this week's episode. Okay.
Sure.
How they did it in the past, how they do it today, and let's talk about just this week fishing Lake of the Ozarks. I think people are going to love to hear that because I'm an old school fisherman. Just so we can be really clear, I don't like braid. I don't like fluoro. I'm a monofilament, fling it out there kind of guy. And old school James is the one that gets his spinning reel out this time of year. He gets his 8-pound line and his jerk baits, and he goes find main lake points, chunky rock, wind blowing in, find some transitional water, try to find some pre-spawning bass on a crankbait, and that's it. That's all I do. Maybe a jig if the sun's coming out.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean,
and that's old school stuff, right?
Yeah, that really is. You are a dinosaur.
Well, thank you.
But the thing of it is, that's 90% of the people that we deal with that walk through the door in our store. They are basically old school type fishermen. Do a lot of them have the technology? Absolutely. And can you learn how to use it? Yep, you can go on YouTube and learn all of it. But, some of us still like just slinging down the bank and casting. And this time of the year is a perfect time to do that because you can catch as big a stringers of bass thrown at the bank as you can out in the open.
So let's go to old school. And what I just said, is that wrong?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
What can somebody do if they have no technology in their boat whatsoever? They get out in their boat tomorrow morning. The lake is low. It's down 5-6 feet. What would you tell a guy, a former Bassmasters Classic champion, a former FLW World champion? I'm going to go out and just fish tomorrow. What do I do? What do I throw?
Well, it kind of depends on the weather a little bit, but we've had a little bit of a warming trend here lately.
Rain and wind tomorrow.
Rain and wind tomorrow. Anytime you got wind, a lot of wind on Lake of the Ozarks, it turns it into a shad primary feed. And when I say that, they're going to feed on shad tomorrow because you're going to have cloud cover. So the fish aren't going to be dead on the bottom. They're going to be suspended a little bit. And so therefore, you're going to take stuff that you can fish above them. Anytime a bass suspends, you need to fish above him in the water column. And when I say that, weighted jerk baits, A-rigs, stuff like that, even a spinnerbait if you get in the right color water.
You know why I'm laughing, right?
Because I used
water
column.
You said water column.
That's right.
I love it. Hey,
we make fun of a lot of these other podcasts because they use big words like water column and stuff like that.
So the column is basically from the ground to the surface.
From the top to the bottom. Yeah,
so
that's
they're always
right.
going to be in the water column, right?
That's right. They're always in the water column.
Hey, would you like some resource tools? Hang tight. Keep talking. I have
Absolutely.
resource tools.
But the thing of it is, on any given day, if it turns around...
Now check this out. Let me get it the right way.
That's what they're eating.
That is a shad right there. He's frozen,
and
they don't eat him frozen. But
that's a large gizzard shad is what that is. When a fish's metabolism is slow, they actually prefer to eat a larger bait. So therefore, large gizzard shad are one of their primary food sources right this minute. When you get a cloudy day, they kind of pull up off the bottom, they suspend. So when that happens, you have to imitate that a little bit. Weighted jerk baits, like I say, an A-rig type bait, even your crankbaits and stuff like that. Just with the water temperature being in the 40s, probably low 40s right now, low to mid 40s, you can't use something that's got a real strong wiggle to it. So one thing that you can keep in mind, if you want to throw a crankbait, make sure it's one that's got a little tight wiggle on it. And when I say a tight wiggle, that means a narrow-lipped crankbait, like a shad wrap.
I knew somebody with a tight wiggle once, but
there you go.
A whole different deal. So.
That's a whole different show.
I said unfiltered, so
that's right.
Just so we're clear. Hey, so reaching out, I'm watching on Facebook right now. There's a gentleman by the name of Steven Stregjek.
You would know him as Stick.
I know, I'm just being mean because
that's right.
He posted and he said, we all watch YouTube videos to improve our golf game. So,
hey,
Stick, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for tuning in and watching us. So,
that's right.
We're having a lot of fun. So, anyway, they're going to be foraging on shad. To emulate a shad, there's about 3 or 4 simple things you can do. And a jerkbait with low metabolism is the number one thing to go to.
Sure. A weighted jerkbait. Yes.
Slow rolling a spinnerbait would be another.
Yep.
A third, which we've all heard about, are A-rigs.
Yep.
You can throw an A-rig out there. Fourth, a shallow to mid-running crankbait up in the shallows around the rocks.
Yep.
That covers it, right?
Pretty much.
That's old school 101 fishing right now going tomorrow. I'm cutting you off a little bit because we have to move into stage 2.
Sure.
How do they do it today?
Today, on a bright, sunshiny day,
Yeah.
you're going to have to throw a crawdad out there a little bit. Today, you get that bright sunshine. The crawdads have been buried up in the mud, most of the winter time. But I have always been of the interpretation in my fishing, a crawdad is a bass's favorite food source. So therefore, you get a bright, sunshiny day like today, and it's calm, there's not much wind, those crawdads will get out from under the rocks, and they'll get on top of a rock seeking the sun, because it's still really too cold for them to be out very well. And as soon as that happens, guess what? Big old bass looks down there and he sees a little crawdad sitting on top of a rock. Guess what? He's going to eat it. I don't care if he's got a mouthful of shad. He's probably going to spit that out and go eat that crawdad.
Had an old fisherman once tell me that you want to look at a main lake point like a McDonald's on the freeway. He's like, you've got your off ramp, which goes to the back of the cove, and then your main channel is the freeway. And he said, you can pull off the off ramp, get you a quick cheeseburger. The cheeseburger is going to be the shad. He said, if you just go to the other side just a little bit further, that's where all the cool steakhouses are.
That's right.
And that's where you find the crawdads.
Yeah.
Kind of a nice little analogy there, but
absolutely.
Not too far off.
Yeah, you got to pull them in, and those shad are what leads the fish around right now by the nose. But if you're fishing around them and you're fishing around the shad, you're going to be around the bass. If you're fishing an area that doesn't have many shad in it, you're not going to be around the vast majority of the bass. And you got to keep that in mind. That's where locators and your electronics really play a big part for me this time of the year, and that's locating the food.
Right. So I have a question online. It says, Brian Scott's asking, how does the falling lake levels affect the bite and affect your bait choices?
Well, as far as I'm concerned here on the lake, what it does is it makes you be able to stop and start fishing a lot easier, because now you can differentiate on the bank changes. And when I say bank changes, when it goes from like big giant rock down to small rock, when you take a lot of water off, sometimes with the water being normal pool, you can get fooled by that because, the shoreline, cover kind of looks one thing. But when you draw the lake down 5 or 6 foot, you know exactly where the bank changes are. Like going from pea gravel to mud, and to a bass, when you have that bank change, that's a stopping spot. That's where he's going to stop, wait for the water temperature to warm up, and then move on towards, say, a spawning area even. Once a bass gets off of those shad in the wintertime and hits the bank, he basically migrates towards spawning areas. And you just got to find which little bank change that he has stopped upon on that given day that you're out there.
We need to add, too, we have to pay attention to current also.
Oh, absolutely.
You always want to look at wind. Wind is going to blow in shad at these points and secondaries. But also, if they're drawing water down, odds are you're going to be pulling from one end to the other, and you're going to have current. And I was always told, and correct me if I'm wrong, that bass puts his nose upstream because he wants to see that bait blow by. So you want to position yourself as such where you can cast to a fish that's facing upstream as he's going to be moving, because he gets too tired trying to fight it. Or he gets behind an ambush point where he's out of the current. But
you don't want to surprise him. And when I say surprise him, if you bring the bait from his tail to his head, you're actually surprising that fish. And that's going to be a situation where he misses your bait, or he follows your bait, or you're throwing your crankbait along and he bumps it and he doesn't get it. And that's because he's not facing that way. And you're actually startling that fish. If you bring it into his face, he's facing into the current or into the wind for that very reason. So he can see everything coming and he can eat it more efficiently. If you surprise him, you're going to miss a lot of fish. If I ever go down a bank and I miss 2 or 3 bites or have some fish bumping my bait, I'll almost always turn around and head the other direction. And all you're doing is you're giving that fish a better look at your lure, and it gives him more time to eat it efficiently.
In the big terms, that's called lure presentation.
That's right. That's right.
There we go.
Ricky Klung would tell you to change the angle on a piece of cover, and all you're doing is you're bringing the bait where he needs to see it. And it makes all the difference in the world when it comes to a fish inhaling your bait or a fish getting on and you hooking him on the back hook and stuff like that. And like I say, you have a lot of different variables: wind, current, Shade even. Shade will let you know which way he's facing a lot of the time. Because, like I say, in the end, he's an ambush predator.
Right. So that takes all the old school and puts it into a ball, right? For a little ball. Now, let's set this ball right here, and then we take live scope and we add it in. All right? Live scope, you can take all those equations, put it in, and then physically go out there and see it.
Absolutely.
And that eliminates a lot of the guesswork. And
yes.
I think that's what we're looking at with forward-facing technology versus one that just goes out there and blindly reads a bank, reads conditions, tries to find fish. But this actually secures it because you can pull into a location, up at a point, and you're going to see shad. And you're going to see fish swimming around chasing them. And you might not know what species they are, but after 2-3 casts, you're going to know. And if it's non-productive, you can cover more water quicker and have a better chance of catching more fish. And I think that's where forward-facing technology is really coming in and helping the anglers become better anglers.
Perspective view on my live scope shows me where to throw a lot of times when I'm fishing up shallow. I'm primarily a shallow water fisherman. Can I fish deep? Absolutely, and I love to do it. But overall, I would rather be in 6-7 foot or less. And when I can pick out a target that not every Tom, Dick, and Harry going down the bank has thrown at already, and I can do that with my electronics, that just makes me a more efficient caster. If I can look down that bank with my active target and see a piece of cover before I get on top of it, guess what? I can make an efficient cast to it, So you can use it to whatever extent you want to use it.
And don't mistake it. I'm not bashing anything, but I would be all in on a no-tech tournament. Just one time.
Yeah.
Just see what happens.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'd call it the NTT.
That's right.
But I think they'd all go, you're going to go fish the nut tournament? I'm like, no, it's NTT. The no-tech tournament, just one time. Everybody just, let's go unplugged. Everybody likes to listen to Reba Unplugged.
Yeah,
I don't know why we can't go watch Tournament Unplugged,
I think it would work, and I think you would I think it would surprise you how many people you would get that would actually want to come fish that,
I think so.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
Now, that'll be on one of those discussions, but, we do have a format of the show, and I think we need to kind of wrap that up and move to the next phase.
Sure, I'm ready.
What's the next phase?
I don't know. You haven't told me yet.
Well, we kind of like
this is brand new. We're kind of making it up as we go.
One. So let's talk about what's happened in tournaments this week. And like I said, you listen to a lot of podcasts. We talk a lot of tournaments. And I'm going to be honest, and this is what unfiltered means. I have, since the 80s and 90s, I have quit watching bass fishing on television. I just don't enjoy it, and that's just me. It is what it is. But you have forced me by text messaging me when you're out running around across the countryside saying, hey, did you see this? Did you see that? And I happened to watch about 2 minutes of Lake Fork. It's the BSS, I think it's the Elite Series.
Yep.
I think it was. Yep. And what really fascinating about that was I realized they didn't weigh any damn fish in. And I thought that was weird. They're all standing up there talking about their sponsors, which I totally, I don't know, just despise, hate, detest. I don't know. And I know anglers have to do that. That's part of their job. But I wish there was a different way of going about it.
I really think that in this day and age, at some point in time, we have to understand who the star of the show is. When they come to Lake of the Ozarks, I went to an Anglers in Action tournament this weekend, and I watched the fishermen come up, and I knew a lot of the guys and stuff like that. But I go to see the fish.
That's right.
And I realize that there's got to be a delicate mix, on being good to the fish, having the proper conservation. These bass boat companies have went to great lengths, on live well systems and aerator systems and stuff like that to keep these fish alive. And I really think that we're all a little bit arrogant to think that we are the star of that weigh-in, because I really think John Q. Public wants to come and see how would I size up if I would have fished today, and if you don't bring them in, sometimes they're going to look back and say, wow, I could have done as well as that,
I think, every angler I know back in 2000, it was, it's every person's dream to fish against a Bassmasters Classic champion, an FLW champion. And I'll tell you what, as a 20-something-year-old going out and fishing my first tournament, I went and fished Central Pro-Am, and I'm like, there's Dion, and there's Guido, and I want to whip both their asses. That's what I wanted to do. That was the thing. And went up to your dad. You guys were gracious enough to sell me one of your boats. We had matching boats. and he always ran a white range with red stripe down the side, and I had the same thing. And I pulled up and I said, "Got your ass today, old man." And he said, "You want to bet boats on it?" And I said, "No, sir, I do not." So, but first day, I was in, I think 50th, and he was in like 52nd. And this is just a story, okay? So he said, "You sure you don't want to fish for boats?" And I said, "No." I said, "I got you," because I had a great bite in Buck Creek. I knew I was going to catch a better string. I figured I could get maybe in the top 25 or so. And you always hope that superstar is going to fall on their head. I mean, that's what you hope for.
Yeah.
Turns out I blew up the next day. I did not realize that Guido that day had picked up the leader who broke down. Now, I'm going to tell you his version of the story real quick. He pulls up on the guy, and I can't remember his name. It was Central Pro Am. It was like back in 2000. And he said, "Man," the guy said, "Hey, Guido, thank God you're here. I need to ride back." He's like, "That's fine. Open your rod box." And he said, "Excuse me?" He said, he said, "I want to see what you're doing. And whenever you show me what you're doing, you can ride back." He's like, "Oh, is it going to be that way?" He says, "If you want to weigh in your fish, it is." So he pulls out his bait. This is what I was throwing. It was a little puffball jig. And he said, I threw it up. It was super cold. It was December tournament. It was ice cold, but he had figured out that little niche. And that night he whipped up some puffball jigs. I think he ended up 5th overall. And it was amazing. But that's, you never underestimate your stars. But to make full circle, I got way off in the weeds there. But you want to take your fish up to the stage and show that you beat the other 200 guys that are there. And you want to show them off. It's like taxidermy, except living taxidermy. It's like, hey, look what my accomplishments are, and everybody clap for me. This is what I did. And it's kind of gone.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they went that way. It doesn't make any sense. I understand conservation, but damn, for the last 50 years, I don't think we've seen some major fish kills due to bass tournament fishing. So I get the conservation guys. BSS, I strongly recommend whoever you have that's green in your marketing, you probably need to let them go and find somebody else to do it. So,
well, you just got to remember what people come to see, and I really believe that. And like I say, I've been watching a lot of YouTube lately, and I hate to say it, but that what I'm watching on the first 2 Elite Series this year, I can't watch it. I can't watch a full show. I'm just bored stiff with it, and I realize those guys are technicians at what they do, but to say it's good for TV, it's really not. I mean, it's terrible. And when I say that, yep, I consider myself a dinosaur, and I realize that if I don't evolve,
a young dinosaur.
Yeah, but if I don't evolve, then I'm going to get left by the wayside. So I understand that I have to learn it, but guess what? I don't have to watch it, and I'm not going to watch it. And I hate to say it, but that's a deal in bass fishing. That was the whole deal that made our sport grow, was TV coverage. The TV coverage, when TNN came in years and years ago, it made this something of a spectacle. It was something you could watch. You could see a guy. I watched Scott Martin Challenge for one reason. It intrigues me when he blows up. When he finally loses it, oh my gosh, and it's a train wreck to watch for just a few minutes of his TV show. But because it's somewhat live, he wants to show that also. But it's taken what we worked a long, long time to promote and to make our sport grow. And I think we're regressing. We're going the wrong direction when it comes to the TV coverage. And like I say, do I care who wins the tournaments? Nope. The best man that weighs in the most fish should win the tournaments. But in the end, I don't have to watch it anymore. And I'm not going to, because it's boring. It's terrible.
Like that whole last 2 minutes, I zoned out on you talking. I got bored because I kept thinking about what would be your dinosaur name.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I have it. I was sitting there while you were talking. All I heard was like, if you remember Peanuts? Miss Offmer, the teacher, she was just like, so I was listening like, man, so boring, it's boring. I was tuning off. I was like, what could be a good dinosaur name? And I came up with one. You ready?
I'm ready.
You'd be Bassacatchamathosaurus. I think that would be a good one.
You need to rethink that. I mean, to come up with something better.
I thought it was pretty good.
It wasn't bad, but I mean,
Mouthosaurus, catching big head.
Large mouth.
Large mouth.
Yeah.
Bassosaurus. But I thought it was good. I came up like that in just 2 seconds, but anyway.
That's the way most of your thoughts do come up. It's just at the blink of an eye.
Just at the blink of an eye. As we're scripted, the only thing I have here is one guy's name and his weight for the entire structure of the show tonight.
Gotcha.
So that was going to be my angler. We're going to pick an angler of the week. but I think it's gonna be a cross between and again, I get so scattered everywhere, but we talked about Lake Fork in the Elite Series. I believe an 18-year-old won for the first time in a while.
Yep.
I think his last name is McKinney. Broke the 100-pound barrier or something along that line.
Yep.
Super impressive. I don't think too many people know about it. So
30 pounds a day is impressive. I don't care where you do it or how you do it. That's impressive.
It's super impressive. So, we can give Anglers of the Week to that. On a local level, I don't know the guy, but I was going to Anglers in Action. I was looking at the standings. I think my pick this week is Josh Wisdom, who I don't know, but finished third overall. But I believe he fished by himself. And if he did fish by himself against 185 other boats with 22.65, hey, hats off to you, Josh. You whacked him. That's something.
Whale of a day.
That's something to do. So that's my Anglers of the Week. Now,
it was the perfect tournament for that, though. Because it was super windy, really hard boat control. And when that happens, if you got two people in the boat with you, there's a lot of times the guy in the back of the boat's not going to get a great cast. So yeah, my hat's off to him. If he fished by himself and competed that well, that's pretty awesome.
He could have fished with a guy that chose not to name himself.
Yeah, that could be. I doubt it.
Like it's what I say, Josh.
If he would have finished
Josh
third,
Wisdom and he who decided not to be named.
Yeah, but if you and I fish together and we finish third, is it just going to be Dion Hibdon?
I make you set the
truck. No, you're going to brag.
No, I make you set the truck. Right. No, I go up and say, I caught them all myself.
That's right.
Wonderful. I had on stage.
I had a wonderful net man.
Exactly.
That's right.
And they'd be like, hey, didn't you fish with Dion Hibdon? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Like, he's down there.
That's true.
And then you go down and he's like, dude, I just had him go up there and weigh my fish. I'm like, it's true. You did. So.
What's next on the agenda?
We don't have an agenda.
We don't have an agenda.
So we can do the shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Yep, shameless plug this week. I think we need to plug. And just so everybody knows, when we do our podcast, and I said earlier, I just despise the whole sponsor process. I think there's ways that anglers, and maybe we'll do a whole podcast on how to correctly articulate a sponsor. And let me give you an example. What I don't like is, well, Dion, the fishing was tough out there this week, and I couldn't have got it done without my 250 Pro XS Mercury powered by my 520 Ranger XLTRI 47D and my Lowrance Electronics who got me through the day and my lithium batteries who saved it all the way through. Now, with that being said, I caught some fish. And I'm like, come on, guys. You got to be a little more kind of sneak it in, Not be so blatantly obvious. Because after a while, and when you're live streaming a weigh-in, and you see 185 guys say the same sentence over and over again.
That's right.
If it smells like doo-doo and it comes out of your mouth like doo-doo, it's doo-doo.
That's right.
And I'm not saying I can do it any better. But with that being said, with this podcast, we're not going to just like integrate it in there. We're going to have what we call the shameless plug. And it's like, this is the time, like right now. So who are we going to plug this week? I think there's a couple we can reach out to. I think I'd like to thank myself. Because this is all totally self-funded at this point. And you and I, we've done it ourselves.
Bryant's Outdoors.
So, and hey, we're looking for sponsors for the show. So if you want to jump on board, give us an email at askrealtalk@gmail.com. Shameless plug. Our YouTube channel got set up today, so after this is aired, we'll save it, can it, go out there, and then we'll be up podcasting probably, I'd say, in the next week.
Absolutely.
Something like that. So that's good. I'd like to personally give a shout out to Pro Guide Batteries. I don't think they're really quasi-sponsored by either one of us, but they do give us batteries.
That's right.
I've got some batteries. You've got some batteries, I think. So
yes, sir.
They're a great product sponsor, and they have some wonderful lithium batteries. Their sealed lead is great, and I would say as a user, try Pro Guide Batteries. It's good stuff. Let's see. Who else do we want to? Is there a shameless plug out there you like? I'd like to thank my dad for bringing Crown Royal to work today because it's Crown Royal. And I'm going to be drinking bourbon at every one of these tonight, and I'll have a different one every time. You're not partaking, but I think you've got a Diet Sprite going. Zero sugar?
I do. Yeah. Zero sugar Diet Sprite.
I might sneak in some of my Crown later. So that's a shameless plug. Do you have one?
I've got several different sponsors. Probably one of the ones I'm most proud of is AFCO. They make a lot of good clothes for great big guys like me. And even little guys like you.
Is this time to talk about you can't fish with your wet?
Hey, you could do that. That's my mom's favorite saying.
So we're gonna end the show this week on our tip of the week.
Tip of the week.
And our tip of the week is going to be called, and I don't know a nicer way to say it, but fishing with a wet groin. Okay. And I know that sounds like totally disgusting and wrong, but if you're men out there, I want to explain something to you that Miss Mama Stella Hibdon taught all of us from a very
That's
young
right.
age, and they were very fortunate. I was in the Hibdon mentoring program for a couple of years, which I could not perform to their level, but it was fun anyway. But we got done getting rigged up, studying maps, getting ready to go on the road, and Stella says, "Listen, got to talk to you about something important. You can't fish when you've got a wet crotch." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, if it gets cold, and you know what it is, if it's get cold, she says, you're done. You're absolutely done for the day. She said, so don't buy a cheap rain suit.
Right.
Go out and get yourself the warmest, driest suit, because if you're out there and you're 60 miles away from the hotel and it rains down the center and runs all the way down to that place where we're not going to talk about, but you get really cold, you really can't focus on fishing. And as a guy, you know, we have to have the guy talk.
Yeah.
It's very hard to fish when you're wet in those central locations. So they don't make waterproof, watertight underwear for men. So get a really good rain suit. Spend the extra money, get you a good rain suit, because you can't fish with a wet penis. And that's the truth.
It's one of the cheapest things you can put in your boat to keep you comfortable.
That's right. And on that subject, while we're talking about that, and not talking about that, but carry some towels, put them in a big Ziploc bag, get you an extra set of clothes, dry pair of shoes, because if you're out away from home, out in the water, you hit a stump field that you didn't know about, you slip and fall off the side of a wet, slick boat trying to land a fish, get your clothes changed, get dry, get back, finish your day out. Don't quit, because you might have a really great time of doing it. But that's my personal tip of the week. Very inappropriate, but appropriate for the subject matter, because it's cold outside. Don't want you to get wet and cold, because if you're cold and miserable, you can't successfully do your job fishing.
It's the second thing I put in my new bass boat every year.
New rain suit?
Well, second behind toilet paper. But
now, do you put your toilet paper in a jar or in a Ziploc bag?
I put mine in a Ziploc bag.
So I saw once, I think it was 2000. I think Randy Blockett said that he had to put it in a peanut butter jar. He said because it still draws moisture in a Ziploc bag, and then it's and then you smash it flat, and it's hard to spin it off because it whops. It goes whoop, 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 whoop. So if you just spin off a bunch of it, put it in a big jar.
We just got on a trend of talking about bags drawing moisture.
Sorry.
I'm not sure how this is going, but
I hear you.
That's why it's unfiltered.
That's right.
That's right.
But we're getting this one out of the way in the first episode, because it's just downhill from here. We're all smooth.
Yeah. It can't get any worse.
All right. So next week, I think we're going to bring on a guest.
Sweet.
I don't know who it's going to be yet. We've got a tremendous line of people. It's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's some people that they're really excited about. We're going to have anglers' wives on. We're going to have anglers' girlfriends on. We're going to have some of the best names in fishing, local and nationwide.
Yeah.
We want to thank everybody for our first episode. I think it was great. Dion, Hibdon, as always, it's a pleasure having you here at the store. And not tomorrow, next week, 6 p.m., we'll do it again here on Real Unfiltered Talk. Is that it?
Next week, same time.
Same time. Guys, appreciate you so much for tuning in, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. See, this is the part where I have to fade to black now. And see, I don't know how to do it. So
You don't know how to do that.
Right, so we're just going to do that
So
while
now
we're
we're
all
just-
still watching. So we transfer it, transition, see what happens.
Just
Still
keep
doesn't work.
smiling.
Yeah.
Shake your head every now and then like you're still talking.
So we'll just go try to disconnect it now.
There you go.
Thanks.